November 2019, Docker, the company that made containers cool, sells its enterprise business for parts. 300 of its 400 employees went in the deal. So did the CEO. What was left got a $35 million consolation check from investors. 5 years earlier, this company owned the entire container market. This is how Kubernetes killed everyone. Rewind to 2013. Ships and developers lose their minds. Package your app in a container, run it anywhere. Same artifact on your laptop and in prod. One command and your app is running. Beautiful. Then your one container becomes 500 containers across 40 servers. Which machine runs what? What happens when one dies at 3 a.m.? Who does the restarting? That job has a name: orchestration. And in 2014, everyone wanted to own it. Meanwhile, Google had been quietly solving this exact problem for a decade, internally, with a system they refused to even name in public. Borg. It scheduled hundreds of thousands of jobs across clusters of 10,000 machines each. Every Google search, every Gmail inbox, every YouTube video, running on it. And this obsession with cheap disposable hardware goes way back. Google's first server rack was built out of Lego. Machines were expected to fail. The software's job was to not care. Summer 2013. A product manager named Craig McLuckie walks into a meeting with Urs Holzla, the guy who runs all of Google's infrastructure. The pitch? Take Borg's ideas, rebuild them in the open, give them away. Holzla's response, roughly quoted: "You want to build an external version of the Borg scheduler, one of our most important competitive advantages, the one we don't even talk about, and you want to open source it?" The pitch was dying. What saved it was a bus. McLuckie got stuck on a Google shuttle with VP Eric Brewer, gave him the whole spiel uninterrupted, and Brewer flipped. Brewer convinced Holzla. The most important infrastructure project of the decade got greenlit on a commuter shuttle. Internal codename: 7 of 9. The Star Trek character who got rescued from the Borg. Look at the Kubernetes logo. 7 spokes. That's the Easter egg. Approval to working prototype took 3 months. Then, on June 10, 2014, 16 minutes into a keynote at the very first DockerCon, Google dropped Kubernetes on stage. And at that same conference, in the same week, Apache Mesos, Red Hat's Gear D, Facebook's Tupperware, and Docker's own LibSwarm all got announced or shown off. 5 orchestrators, 1 market. The war was on. Contender 1, Docker Swarm, Docker's home field play. I ran a 3-node Swarm cluster in 2016. Setup was 1 command. It just worked. That's the tragic part of this story. The loser was genuinely pleasant to use. A Docker founder later summed up their whole bet in 1 line: "I love Kubernetes, but it is not for normal humans." Swarm was for the normal humans. Remember that quote. It ages badly. Contender 2, Mesos, the grown-up in the room. Mesos came out of a Berkeley PhD project in 2009, and its claim to fame was real. It's the system credited with killing Twitter's fail whale. Remember when Twitter fell over every other day? Mesos fixed that. Its commercial arm, Mesosphere, raised $250 million from A16Z, T. Rowe Price, even Qatar's sovereign wealth fund. Microsoft reportedly sniffed around an acquisition at about $1 billion. I still have a Mesosphere sticker on a laptop that no longer boots. Fitting? Contender 3, the weird Greek one. Kubernetes is Greek for helmsman. Nobody could spell it, which is why we all write Kates. K, 8 letters, S, naming a product something 8 letters too long and letting the internet abbreviate it. Bold strategy. Then, July 21st, 2015, Google made the single smartest move of the entire war. The same day Kubernetes hit 1.0, Google handed the whole project to a brand new neutral foundation, the CNCF, under the Linux Foundation. Google gave away its own weapon, which meant Amazon and Microsoft could adopt Kubernetes without writing a check to a competitor. Swarm could never offer that. Every dollar of Swarm adoption was a dollar of trust placed in Docker Inc. And right on cue, Docker did the opposite. Docker 1.12 shipped with Swarm welded directly into the Docker engine. The runtime that Kubernetes, Mesos, and everyone else depended on now had Docker's competing orchestrator baked inside it. Every rival was suddenly distributing their opponent's product. The community went nuclear. Samsung's Bob Wise called Swarm Mode a large new system developed in secret and openly floated forking Docker itself. Fortune covered it, an open-source project having a public custody battle. Docker de-escalated by carving the core runtime out into a neutral project called Containered and donating it to the CNCF. Damage done, though. Enterprises had watched Docker use its position as leverage once. They planned accordingly. Meanwhile, Kubernetes kept shipping features that came from actual scars. Take labels. Borg didn't have them, so Google engineers crammed metadata into job names, some stretched to 180 characters. Pods exist because Borg users kept duct-taping logging sidecars to their tasks. 10 years of production pain, prepaid. Kubernetes gave us its own scars in return. I once lost 45 minutes to a deployment that failed because one line of YAML had 3 spaces of indentation instead of 2. The helmsman demands tribute. Then came 2017, the year of the dominoes. August. Amazon, the last holdout, the company with its own competing ECS service, joins the CNCF as a platinum member. October. Microsoft ships AKS, managed Kubernetes on Azure. And that same October, at DockerCon Europe in Copenhagen, Docker announced Kubernetes support inside Docker's own products. Docker, shipping Kubernetes, at DockerCon. That's a white flag with extra steps. December, re-invent. Andy Jassy walks on stage and announces EKS, managed Kubernetes on AWS. All 3 clouds, one orchestrator. The market had voted. August to December 2017. That's the whole collapse. 3 years of fighting settled in 1 quarter. Then, the funerals. 2018. Red Hat buys CoreOS for $250 million, absorbs it into OpenShift. 2019. Mesosphere gives up, renames itself D2IQ, pivots to selling. Kubernetes. November 2019. Docker Enterprise goes to Mirantis, and Swarm gets a 2-year hospice notice. 2021. DC/OS, the Mesos operating system, officially dead. The Register's headline said it plainest: Game, Set, and Match Kubernetes. Want the final twist of the knife? In version 1.24, Kubernetes deleted Docker shim, its built-in support for the Docker runtime. The project announced at DockerCon eventually removed Docker from its own codebase. And this is the part that should bother you. Kubernetes was the hardest of the 3 to learn, the most complex to run. Not for normal humans, it won anyway. 10 years of Borg production scars, baked in before version 1.0. A neutral foundation, so adopting it never meant funding a rival. And a declarative API that assumed your hardware would fail, because at Google scale, it always did. Complexity that earns its keep beats simplicity that runs out of road. Today, Kubernetes has over 88,000 contributors from 8,000 companies. It's the second largest open-source project on the planet, behind Linux. It runs orchestration for 71% of the Fortune 100, and in CNCF's survey, 96% of organizations were using or evaluating it. The conference where Kubernetes launched as a guest? KubeCon now dwarfs it. 23,000 registrants in a single year. Kubernetes means helmsman, the one steering the ship. Docker built the ship, Mesos killed a whale, and Google walked off with the wheel. Subscribe if you want, or don't. The scheduler will just restart you anyway.